So this week, the people went to Costco, to Giant Eagle, to Walmart, wandering the aisles in search of Clorox wipes, paper towels, and toilet paper. The people searched at CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid and turned to Amazon for disposable gloves and masks and hand sanitizer. They wandered and wandered in search for that which would satisfy their need and to assuage their fear, only to find aisle after aisle empty and the message on Amazon unavailable. And then the people asked, "Is the Lord here among us or not?" Last week we read the story of Abraham being told to take his family and everything he owned and to go on a journey to who knew where. This week we find ourselves in the wilderness with Moses and the people of Israel, and we find ourselves with a thirsty Jesus coming to a well at the hottest time of the day, breaking social distance by talking with a woman, a Samaritan woman at that. And what do all these stories have in common? They're all challenges to the normal ways of doing things. They're all challenges to the status quo. The ways in which the people thought their lives were going was changed in a moment. Abraham and Sarah had no intention or plan to venture away from their home into a totally new place. Certainly the people of Israel and Moses thought that life of oppression under the Pharaoh was all that was ever going to be. And as for the woman at the well, could she have ever imagined hearing words of love and affirmation from a Jewish teacher? You know what else these stories all have in common? The people all survived. They lived. They were able to adapt to changing circumstances and the environment. They moved from fear and frustration to promise, God's promise of new life. The childless Abraham and Sarah are told that they're going to be the bearers of many children. How can that be? They're so old, and yet the promise came true. God tells Moses to lead the people from bondage to freedom. And it's not an easy journey, as we know. It's 40 years in the wilderness. And in today's lesson, the people have wandered in search of water, and they're hungry and they're thirsty. And they want Moses, their leader, to do something. Make it better, Moses. And Moses looks at the stones around him, and he's afraid the people are going to start throwing those stones at him because he can't fix it. He can't make it better right in that moment. I will tell you, I know what that feels like. I have been known to utter Moses' prayer. God, you called me. You asked me to do this, and the people are ready to stone me. And then in that moment, look what God does. God takes the threat and transforms the threat into water. God tells Moses to pick up those very stones that Moses is afraid someone's going to throw at him. And he tells him to transform it. Hit that stone with the staff, and out of it will come living water. Then there's the thirsty Jesus coming to a well without a bucket or a cup to draw with. And he encounters a woman from a people who are supposedly enemies of the Jews. The story is so filled with irony. First of all, you have to ask why Jesus isn't prepared. Like, if you're on a journey, wouldn't you take your water bottle with you, or at least a cup in case you need to get water? Or maybe it's not that Jesus isn't prepared. Maybe it's Jesus teaching us that we have to trust others along the journey. He's thirsty. He has a need for a drink. He has a need for this woman to give him water. And in that moment, he has broken so many barriers. He has broken down these barriers between men and women, between Jews and Samaritans. He is willing to engage in conversation. And the woman is open to learning, so much so that you can read some more of this story, and she challenges Jesus. You know, is this really true that I can receive this gift of new life? There's another theme that's common to these stories. Yes, trusting a stranger, receiving a call from God, adapting in wilderness experiences, In all three of these stories, these are experiences that strengthen the people. We know that Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness. It was where he came to understand his identity as who he was as the Messiah, the Christ. The people of Israel found themselves as God's people and claimed that identity from the 40 years of being in the wilderness. These are all experiences that cause people to learn about trust in God and trust in each other. And these stories also have in common that God is doing a new thing, that God can transform threat to hope. And we, like Abraham and Sarah and Moses and the woman at the well, are asked to join in the ongoing work of God in the world. Some of you know that one of my favorite scholars is Ronald Heifetz, who teaches at Harvard. And he does a lot of work on adaptive change. And he tells us there's a difference between technical problems and adaptive problems. A technical problem is when the roof caves in and you got to fix the roof. An adaptive challenge is what we're dealing with right now. And in these moments, it includes the change of our lives. Adaptive challenge means loss and risk. It means hearts and minds will change. It means the loss of things that we already know and how we do it. Making the kind of adapted changes we're being asked to do in these days requires trusting in God and each other, those who are caring for us, but it also requires us to trust that something new will emerge from this chaos in which we're living. I, like all of you, are concerned and worried about the impact of this coronavirus and the impact it's having on our lives and the world. I'm also praying for wisdom and truth for us all. I'm praying that the hoarding of toilet paper soon ceases, because as someone shared with me this week, my need to feel safe with 50 rolls of toilet paper might prevent my neighbor from not having any. Did any of you see the guy that has stockpiled the hand sanitizer hoping to make money off of it? That's not just irresponsible, that's unethical. There's something about saying that, okay, I have the resources to go to the store when we have neighbors who have to go one day at a time. A guy in front of me at Costco, yes, I made the run to Costco this week, not for toilet paper, $1,200 in one visit to Costco. How can any two people, they said they were only two people in their household, what in the world will they do with all of that? But there are starting to see shelves that are empty. What does that say about us as a people? And now we have healthcare workers and first responders and others who are going to work so that we can be safe and receive care and have enough food to eat. So we need to be good neighbors to each other, and we need to monitor our anxiety and our fear and challenge ourselves so that we can pray for wisdom and for truth. But I see God at work, even in the midst of all this craziness. On Friday night, I had the joy of watching the Waynesboro High School production of Hello, Dolly. For 2 hours, we were invited in the program to remove ourselves from the craziness of the world and enjoy the theater. I hope we'll all do the same, to remove ourselves from whatever is causing our anxiety. And for me, I have to say that means no more watching the news for the time being. I cannot trust that what happens at 9 a.m. doesn't change at 10 o'clock and it gets even worse by 11. It's not helpful information. It's just getting me panicked and anxious and fearful. I can tell you where I see God at work, like in the faces of those young people who I'm going to tell you sang their hearts out because I think they knew it was going to be the last time they were going to see each other for weeks. But through that gift of music, they gave a gift to everyone who was there that evening. I was humbled, I have to tell you, on a personal note, where I saw God and experienced it this week, where on Thursday night, members of my Rotary Club gathered, and I will tell you that everyone I saw Thursday night asked me how I was doing and what I was doing to stay healthy. That's from people in the community. And I was humbled and grateful that not only do they see that the church community, the faith community, can bring something in these crazy days, I was grateful that they cared about me. And I thank you all for your own writing to me and calling me and sending me emails and messages. We're in this together. But I think you know it's a heavy burden when you're trying to balance the safety and the news with your spiritual needs and the needs of this community. I'm seeing God at work when people are posting on Facebook and elsewhere, including members of our church, that they're willing to provide care for their neighbors, to watch their kids, to go food shopping for those who are not leaving their homes. I see God at work every time someone acknowledges that this is not just about me and my needs, but how I can be the best neighbor. And when we acknowledge that our neighbor isn't just the one who lives nearby in Frederick, but in all parts of the globe. I see God at work when we recognize that we're bound to one another. We have to work on this together. And we come before God today wondering and wandering, and we really don't know what the next day will bring. And yes, we have fear and anxiety today, but it's an old experience that we've gone before. We know that things will probably get worse before they get better. We know that there will be loss, and we know that we're going to have to find ways to adapt. But we also know that we're not alone. Those who have gone before us have demonstrated with their lives that the capacity for life far outweighs death, and that human beings really are capable of living in incredibly unselfish ways for such a time as this. And I'm going to remind us all that having a stockpile of paper towels or cans of soup is not going to feed the hunger of our souls. Blaming the Chinese or the Europeans or whoever for this virus isn't going to make it better. We need to turn to that which lasts, the living water of the Christ, the power of the Holy Spirit, and our God of creation who turns chaos into new life. May God give us courage and strength to be bearers of hope, to be lights in this world, and to care for one another. Thanks be to God. Amen.